What's going on, guys? And welcome to another edition of the War Cry podcast. I'm your host, Yahola Tiger. And on this, I guess you could say, wonderful afternoon when you're hearing this, I'm going to tell a story that I don't think I've ever told publicly in full length. The story that I've told bits and pieces of it. I've told it at storytelling events. I have told it on other people's podcasts, but I've never told the full length. And it's about my first time when I was in Houston, in Huntsville to be exact. Before we get to that story, if you guys aren't aware, you can find the War Cry podcast on TikTok, X, and then through the Gmail. And so the TikTok and the X account is War Cry Pod. Go follow me on there. I post clips. One thing about TikTok is so crazy is like, we thought it was gone and here it is. We're still here kicking. And then X, I be tweeting. I probably send out about 10 tweets a day. Things that I see, some of the nutty crap that's going on the internet. And then if you want to send me a story, which I've had a few people do and I appreciate, to be featured on This Is Creepy, you can be anonymous, but it's real war cry pod at gmail.com. Spelled exactly how it sounds. And then also, too, we have the Patreon, all the way up to date. It's got every episode known to man I've ever published. It's on there. There's a few episodes that you haven't heard on the podcast, or you've only heard clips of, or you only heard portions of. That's also on the Patreon. And then now, it's live, it's active, is YouTube memberships. So if you want to join and be a fan of the show, it's $2.99. If you want to be a friend of the show, it's $4.99. You get everything with both. But the $4.99, you get a little bit more. You get a little extra. That's on YouTube. So if you're hearing this on YouTube and you're like, you know what? Let me go ahead, because I will be eventually, once we build up a community over there, doing Patreon and YouTube membership exclusive only live streams. So they'll be together and you can see the live streams in one or two places. But with that said, let's get to the show. It's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Keep that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Yahola Tiger.
In my college days, I always was kind of looking to do something. I have, to this day, I still have it, is the fear of missing out, FOMO. And I was 21 years old. I was a junior in college. Might have been sophomore. I can't remember exactly. Whenever those ages line up. I was a sophomore because I went to Bacone for 1 year and that put me behind. Shout out Bacone. But years prior, we went to Six Flags over Texas. And that was fun. We wanted more though. We wanted like a festival. And so during that time we were kicking around like, what are we going to do? Not really sure where. And we try to make it line up with spring break. And my friend goes, hey, my family lives in Huntsville. Just right outside. I think it's like 30 minutes outside of Houston, which Houston metropolitan is crazy. It's like crazy big, crazy wide. And I said, okay, that sounds cool. What can we do there? I looked it up. It's like the prison capital of Texas, which is kind of wild, but still. So we kicked that around for a little bit. This is during the first part of the spring semester, and we're just kind of thinking, and then we find that the Houston rodeo, was going around. It's making its headway. It's coming, And we decided to do that. We started asking everybody, and they're like, no, well, I'm doing this, I got this. And so there was only 3 of us that decided to go. Myself and my 2 friends. And first one's name I'm going to name is Kayla. I'm changing names for anonymity's sake. And Alex was the other one. Well, Kayla's family, really Kayla's grandmother, owned a house in Huntsville. She was married to another man, and so they lived, which was kind of weird, but they lived literally down the street. But they had that house that just sat, and family members, when they would come to visit, would stay there. All the time. They were always staying down there. Somebody was, her family. So we're like, we don't have to pay for Airbnb or a hotel. So that's nice. And dang, me being broke, I started looking around. I said, God, let's see where the money coming at. At the time, I think I was working I believe I was working at the YMCA at that time. So I was like, I got a little bit of money. I could do it. So we buy the tickets. And it's official. We're going. And if any of you guys know of anything about Houston traffic or even Dallas traffic, going through Dallas, it's a nightmare. So we left at midnight. I think it was Sunday night, I think is when we left. And might have been even Saturday. Might have been going there Sunday or arriving there Sunday, but leaving Saturday. I can't exactly remember the details on that, but it was forever ago, guys. It was over 10 years ago, which is nutty that I'm like that old now. But so we load up and we're driving. Me being the driver, and I got 2 passenger princesses, didn't want to drive, so I drove the entire way, all 8 hours to Houston. Felt like forever, and we ended up arriving at 8 o'clock in the morning, exactly right on the dot. And as we arrive, I'm looking at this house, and it looks like just every regular house, real nice, pretty, no issues. I'm like, man, this is gonna be a really comfortable stay. And my friend Kayla goes, yeah, I forgot to mention you guys, and this is gonna be a theme for this entire trip. I forgot to tell you guys, but my cousin and his wife and their baby is gonna be staying with us. I'm like, oh. And this is before I even had kids, so I already knew. I was like, nah, this is about to be not well. This is not about to be right. And so when we walked in, met everybody, and we basically had to decide on who was sleeping where. With me being the only guy, they saw it fit that I slept on the other side of the house, which, hey, I'm all about my privacy. I get peopled out fairly easy, and during that time, I didn't get peopled out as much, but now I do. It was nice. I was like, oh, yes, awesome. I get my own room. I get my own bathroom. I can, do whatever I want to do and not have to be bothered. If I wanted to watch YouTube videos or be a nerd, I could in the comfort of my own room. And they slept in the adjacent rooms where there was 3 bedrooms with a bathroom in the middle. And so that's the sleeping arrangement. And so I'm like, cool. So as I'm walking into the kitchen and then down this little small corridor into that master bedroom, I open that door. And there are small dolls sitting all over the room. I couldn't even believe it, guys. At the time, I don't even think Annabelle had come out yet. But I remember seeing it, that it was being made at that time. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And so I asked her, my friend Kayla, I said, hey, what is going on with these dolls? And she's like, well, It was something my grandmother loved, and we always, we didn't really change much. Be in mind, guys, that this house was exactly as it was when her grandfather died. Nothing has changed. It is the exact same, decorations and all. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess whatever. We'll deal. I'll be all right. So I get my stuff and I start to kind of unpack, and I start moving these dolls around. I started making them face the wall, and I did not want them watching me while I slept. So after that 8-hour drive, 7.5, whatever, I end up going to sleep. I'm like, man, I'm going to take a nap. I lock the door and I crash out. I proceeded to fall out. And I don't know how long I slept, but I slept. And when I wake up, the dolls are turned back around. And I'm like, what? Okay. I like to tell spooky stories. I spook my friends out a lot with some of my stories. And a lot of stories I hate to admit, but I have forgotten. And sometimes it takes certain people and certain people saying certain things for me to remember. But they're messing with me. Okay. So I get up, the bathroom lights already on. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, what's going on? So I get in there, take a shower, and we're getting ready. We're gonna run around Houston for a little bit, or run around the surrounding area. And so we do. And I go, hey, during the middle of this, I'm like, hey, what's going on with those dolls? I said, I turned them around, like, oh, she's like, yeah, my grandpa really liked, things had to be a certain way with him. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And I'm telling her, is this place haunted? And she's like, no, I wouldn't say so. And be in mind, guys, I have told this story about this same friend who she thought her grandfather, who had passed, came to visit her while she was sleeping one night. And go back and that is, I believe, Ghost Stories episode, one of the very first episodes. So we're running around doing young people things, drinking a little bit, and we come back, and I'm exhausted by this point. We have a concert in the morning, that next following morning, and I'm like, man, I might as well just get some rest. So I do the same exact thing. I turn those dolls around. Everything's off. I have to sleep in pitch black. This is like a thing for me. And I wake up the next morning, and those dolls are turned back around towards me, and the light is on. It's like someone knew that irked me. And I get up. I'm an early riser. It doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I still will wake up anytime before 9 o'clock. And if I get a full 8 hours, or if I get 6 hours, I will be up at 6 to 7 o'clock. Just how I am. It's just how I'm wired, I guess. And so I'm like, what is going on? We got no food in this house. I'm starving. I'm a little irritated. What is going on? So I say, quit messing with me. Like, I don't want to be messed with. And they're like, I swear to you, we are not doing anything. They literally were like, we are not doing anything. And be in mind that her weird ass cousin, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Dude is weird. He is a weird guy. I cannot describe to you how weird this guy is. He is pacing around at night. So I'm thinking it's him at this point. I mean, he never slept, it felt like. He never did any, he never, would ever sit down. He was always pacing around. And we decided to hang out at the house after the concert. And he gets blackout drunk. He's acting crazy. He's screaming. And I'm like, what is going on right now? This dude is crazy. And so the next day after, we get our first concert, I believe it was Billy Currington who's who we went to see, which must be doing something. Oh, that song was a hit. That song was straight fire. I think I was in like middle school. But he had a few songs in the I think 2015s, 2016s, and he had some heat. And so we see him, and we had Blake Shelton coming up. And, I want to experience Blake Shelton. I had already seen him the year before, but I want to see him in living color on this monster stadium. I think it was NRP Stadium, whatever the stadium's name is in Houston. And so this guy's acting weird. He's erratic. Something's off. I'm like, I'm getting weird vibes from the place. I keep thinking I'm seeing shadows when I'm in the living room. It just was weird. It was really weird. I could tell the tension was getting up a little bit more throughout everybody in the house. And it just was not the best vibes, I'll say. So he goes, "Hey, let's go for a ride in my souped up, car." And I'm like, "Okay." And he opened up the garage. I'm telling you, this is the whole trip. This whole first trip felt like a fever dream, low key. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm in the freaking Twilight Zone. Like, he's like really nice. He was like, "Yeah, man, let's go for a ride." I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess let's go for a ride." We have one car. We all loaded up together in one car. So I think the girls were going doing something, and I was like, I guess I'm with this joker. Get in the car, and come to find, dude didn't even have a license. Did like 9 DUIs. I'm like, God bless, son. I'm out here riding around. You're not even street legal. And we get back, and the girls are already back. And his girl is yelling at him, "Why are you putting him in risk? Blah, blah, blah. You're not supposed to be out in that car. You got arrested for being in that car." Like, just going off. I was thinking he was going to slap her. I ain't going to lie. I was going to hold you. And, things would have had to been dealt. I'm not going to lie to you. But luckily, it kind of calmed down, and he just went to sleep. He was like, "I'm tired. I'm going to sleep." He didn't have no job. He just was hanging out. Well, we're all sitting out there, and I'm like, "What's going on with y'all? Is that your husband? Whatever." I'm just kind of asking questions because that's what I like to do. I like to get to know people, I guess. But she's like, "Yeah, we've been together like 6 years, and we just had this baby, and he lost his job, but he's like going crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a job. He's home every day. Like, yeah." And she's like, "Well, I think I'm gonna go stay with the following day." She's talking about staying with her dad, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't really want to tell who my dad is." And I'm like, "Who's your dad?" She's like, "I don't really want to tell." I don't know if that was Mark Cuban's daughter. I don't know, but she was making it sound like he owns a bunch of stuff. He's a real estate guy. If you heard his name, you know who he is. I'm like, well, okay. Now I don't know if it is. I don't quote me on that, but it was weird, like the way she acted like we would have known her dad. And so as we're hanging out talking, uh, she becomes really distraught, and she's like, "I'm gonna go lay down." I said, "All right, whatever." So she goes and lays down in that spare bedroom, and we're all sitting out there, and we're like, "Man, what is going on? This is weird. This is so weird." Like, I'm like, and our vibes between us aren't the best because, like, for whatever reason, that I don't know. There's something with that house. I'm gonna say that. And so we go see Blake Shelton. He kills it. He rocks it. And I can't remember the third person we went and seen. I can't, for the life of me, remember who that was. But so we're ending near the end of our trip, and we have one concert to go. We were thinking about adding another one and extending our time. Well, we decided it wasn't best, so we have one concert left. We did a bunch of stuff. We milled around. Ate with her family, Kayla's family, and then just a bunch of other, things that we did. And one thing that was it just kept getting more intense. And we noticed next door that they were having a party. I don't know who it was, but the cousin was like, "Let's go over there." Let's have a ball. And we go in there, and it's I don't know how they like Texas. Y'all be partying different than us in Oklahoma, because I saw some things that I'm not gonna share on this podcast. But I was like, what the hell? Like, it's just it was like a winter snowfall, I'll say, on the table. And I'm like, what is going? I'm literally like, I'm looking at both my friends like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I'm not doing this. So I hang out for a minute, and I started getting this weird feeling. And usually, most times, I don't ever ignore this weird feeling. And I started being like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go back over on our side, because I don't want to be caught with these people. So, and I don't know, I don't want something to get busted, because there's a bunch of old people, call the cops, and next thing you know, it's like a whole mess. People going to jail. I'm in Texas, in Huntsville, where it's the prison capital of Texas. I'm not doing it. Sorry. And I go over to the little fire pit, and I get a fire going. I'm sitting there, and I'm enjoying my adult beverage at 21 years old. And I'm just sitting there hanging out and just enjoying the coolness of the air. And I look over, and the cousin is standing next to this guy. And this I've never told this. And this is, like I said, this is why this is going to be members only. Well, I'll make it public, whatever. If things happen, they happen. But I've never told this publicly, and I'm going to tell it now. I think I ran into something that I wasn't sure if it was actually human. I think. So I'm sitting there, and I look over, and the cousin's talking to this guy like best buds, like acting like they knew each other for life. And the guy comes over, and I remember very vividly, he looked like a cowboy, but he looked like Rip. Honestly, he looked like Rip from Yellowstone, and I was like, man, this guy, cowboy, this is country guy. Come in, he's got tight jeans on, he's got a kind of a darker shirt, beard, dark hair. But I just got a weird feeling from him. And we sit and talking, and not really talking. He just sits down. I'm just kind of like, hey, man, what's going on? Oh, nothing. How are you doing? He goes, Yahola Tiger. I said, what? And I literally was like, looked at him, because I never, like, for those of you guys who have grown up with me, I didn't go by Yahola up until I was in college. I just got tired of, not tired, but I just like, it's a nickname, I get tired of having to correct people, I guess, but whatever. So he goes, Yahola Tiger, huh? And I didn't go by that name at the time. Like, I wasn't friends that called me, and I'm like, what? I don't know him. Like, I don't know this guy at all. And I thought it was really weird. I was like, okay. I was like, how do you know my name? He's like, oh, I know a lot of things about you. I said, really? And he's like, yeah. You live over here. And he gave my parents' address where I was staying while I was in college. He started reeling off different things about me that not a lot of people know. They're public now. Obviously, they're public now because I have a podcast. But little details. Oh, you had a cousin who passed, not a few years ago. Just really giving these details that I really wasn't sharing at the time. And I'm like, how do you know these things? He's like, I just know about you. I know about you. And I thought it was so weird. I was like, man, this guy. And he's like, well, there's a lot of things in this world that aren't, they're really not what you say. Like, they're not what they seem. They're not really, there's more to it. He was kind of just like talking in this way that made me uncomfortable. But I think he liked that. Because I'm sitting there looking at him, and I could feel, like, I just felt off. I felt so, it wasn't scared. Because if I had to rumble, we got to rumble. But, like, I just was, like looking at him like, what? And so he keeps talking. He's like, yeah, you got a relative who works, over here off, and then gives this address. I'm like, how does he know that relative? Like, that relative's like a married, like, it's like married to my third cousin. But he works over there, and I see him all the time, and he's around. I said, well, do you know him? He said, no, I just know of him. And I'm thinking, okay, this my cousin's husband must have run into this guy and maybe gave a detail, thinking that maybe he might have mentioned me or something. Which at the time, I hadn't talked to that cousin's husband in like a while. I'm a little under the weather, guys. I'm trying to power through here. I'm losing my voice. But I thought I'd give y'all this episode. And so we're sitting there, and he, like I said, he keeps giving these random details. I'm just not understanding. He said, but where he works is close to where I like to be. And I'm like, where is that? He said the lodge, and I'm like, the lodge. And at the time, I was this is before, like this is when YouTube had like everything. Like you could deep dive on everything. And the Masonic lodges was a thing that I was looking into a lot at that time. And you're just on YouTube, and Alex Jones and people like that, or David Icke, just giving a few names that you're like, that's something that you watch, growing up, or that I watched growing up. And he kept giving little details. And he said, well, I'd like to extend an invitation for you. I'd like for you to come and hang out while I'm in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I don't even know you, though. He's like, I know, but I know you. I know who you are. And I'm just like, it is weird. I know you're probably listening to me like, what is he saying? What is the point? And during that time, I had, when I was a senior in high school, I dealt with the Ouija board. If you want to go hear that story, go harken back to my compilation video of all my stories growing up all the way up into high school. And I'm thinking it's that. I'm like, well, maybe this is like I'm just getting weird feelings from this. And he said, well, I'd like to see you in June. Come to the Masonic Lodge in June. And he gave me a date and everything, middle of June. He said, I'd like to see you. I'd like to invite you to come hang out with me there. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, man. I'm trying to play it cool. Like, I'm not trying to show him that, like, I'm weirded out or uncomfortable. I'm trying to, like act like I'm unfazed by this. But, like, inside, I'm like, this is, like, really, like, I'm almost getting scared. Getting spooked out. And so I look over and I see my friend coming over. I see Kayla coming over and her cousin. And the guy says, okay, I'll see you then. He gets up and they're walking over there. They're walking over to me. And she sits down literally right next to the guy, and the cousin sits on the other, like literally right next to the guy. And he gets up and he says, all right, see you then. And he walks away. And they literally sit down while he's getting up. And I said, do y'all know him? And they're like, who? I'm like, that guy right there. And they look, and there's nobody there. Don't know where he went. And I said, I was talking to the cousin. I said, you were just talking to him. You know him. I just saw you buddying up with him. He said, I don't know who you're talking about, dude. So I'm thinking that I'm like on something. Like they might have drugged me, or they might have made me hallucinate or what. And they're like, no, I don't know who you're talking about. And I'm like, I swear to you, he was just right there. He was in a black cowboy hat with a dark shirt and really tight jeans. And he had boots on. They're like, no, dude. There's no one here by that. I'm like, I don't know. That's weird. And I'm like, literally, like, starting to get kind of like really scared. Like, I'm like, who was that? And so I kind of hang out for a little bit longer, and I'm on high alert. Like, I'm looking around, like I'm weirded out. Like, this is scary. Like, I'm getting scared. Because nobody seems to know who this guy was. And I asked Alex, and she's like, I don't know who that is. And I kind of milled around. I didn't see anybody that looked like that guy. So I'm getting weirded out. Like, I'm like, man, this is weird. This is weird. Because first of all, he invited me to Masonic Lodge, and he knew a lot of things about me. I was thinking this guy's CIA too. I was like, man, is a CIA? What am I doing? Did I hit a wrong turn? This is when I thought YouTube was kind of like, oh, we're not supposed to be watching this, but it was on YouTube, and so I was getting a little weirded out. So I go to bed, and the weird stuff in the house happened again, where the light comes on by itself. I just let the dolls hang out. I was like, whatever. I'll let them look at me all night. And, I was like, whatever. I didn't even care at that point. I just had a weird encounter with somebody that may not even be real. And so, next day happens, we hit the concert. The two friends that I'm with start going, getting button heads and getting tense. And they stopped talking to each other. It became a mess and a half after that night. A mess and a half. So we were coming home. Or no, we're not coming home. I'm getting ahead of myself here because I gotta reveal to you what's going on. And so we're packing up, and my friend Kayla goes, I'm surprised you even stayed in that room because it's scary as things that you know. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, my grandfather died in that room and in that bed you slept in. And I'm like, what? You had me sleeping in a dead man's bed? And then it clicked for me. This is what's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in this house that he would have never, ever allowed to happen in the house. Not really on our part, but just in the family. And as we get into my next visits at this house and at this place, then you'll understand what I mean. And eventually I'll get to that. But there was just a lot going on in that house, and I think it was him. I think he was facilitating a lot of that weird stuff. Now, this is one thing about meeting that man by that fire, and I've thought about this almost 10 years now, over 10 years now. Was he a version of her grandfather? That has been kind of my thought. Maybe it was a younger version of him trying to reach somebody who is maybe more sensitive or will be able to talk people into not doing. I don't know. But it was weird that the invitation part doesn't make sense to that. So I probably have never told anyone the story. And I told my dad, and we have conversations like this sometimes when it comes to certain, I don't know, you'd say, certain type of, I don't know how to say it, but a kind of a not spookiness, but a more of a, dare I say, understanding of maybe the creator. My dad has always said, and my grandpa always, said this too, that we know him, and we know when it's not him. And so that's kind of what led me down this road. And so I was talking to Patrick Meekin about this after the episode that me and him did during Halloween season. And we talked about this story, and he flat out just says, "You met the devil, dude." And I'm like, "What?" No. He said, I have received multiple reports of women seeing this man. He said, "You described this man exactly how I have been described this man to me multiple times." He said, I don't know if it was close to 100, encounters, but he said a lot of encounters that I've received is women getting approached by this man, and he seems like a really good guy, and he invites you somewhere. That he said that's usually how they're basically getting consent from you to enter your life. And I'm like, and so I was kind of like grappling with that. And my question, that I had to myself was like, well, was he jumping from the cousin to someone else? Because the cousin, I'm telling y'all, this dude was on one. Like there's a level of not give a f. This dude had the level beyond that level. Like, he was the final boss of not giving a f. Like, no, like I just can't describe. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying, but he just did not care, and I'm wondering if that's like the jumping of the ship. He knows like this guy's going down. Like I might as well find a new person to attach myself to. I wonder that. I wonder about that. And my dad even kind of said was like, yeah. He's like that might have been something, dude. Like I'm glad you didn't choose to meet him. And the story. It's like I've always kind of kept it to myself. And as June rolled around, I went by the Masonic Lodge, and I looked. Part of my memory. This is one thing that's kind of weird about memory, is there's a part of me that thought I saw somebody, and then there's another part of me that did. I don't think I see anybody, and I always got creeped out because I played in a basketball league right next to that Masonic Lodge, and I always would park like off to the like on the other side because I didn't want to see it. It always made me uncomfortable. And this, if you haven't been to Muskogee's Masonic Lodge, or if you're someone who is in that lodge, it's a big stone. It's like a gray building. It's creepy. No windows. It's just creepy. So creepy. But for a lot of years, I would drive by that, going to work, or going to a friend's house. I had a buddy that lived over that way. We go hoop over here, over that way, and I always think about that. And as as the years have gone on, like I said, I reached out to Patrick Meekin and we talked about it, and I'm almost of the belief that that might have been something down in the underworld trying to get to me, and that always goes back to the story that I've told multiple times, and I told this story that I'm about to mention on the Halloween special. It was the last episode we told that night, of seeing this man, this hat man, and I had seen him in multiple other times. I always seen him when I wasn't doing well, or I'd see shadows of him, of this man, of this hat man type thing. I saw him at the Cherokee Casino one night. It, it, I always get scared talking about this because like I don't want to see him again. You know what I'm saying? Like I got two little girls, and that's something that I always, kind of shudder at. Like I have dreams about it sometimes, and there's nothing I can do in my dream. Like it's like I'm helpless, and that might be a lot of some of the things of maybe grief or regret, or feeling bad about certain things. I don't know, but I always think back to that time I met that stranger next to that fire. And who was that? Who, was he after my soul? I think about that. I hear, and I've mentioned this before, but I hear this bird. It's like, it's in my ear, but it's like, and it's a weird sounding bird. And my daughter the other day, I asked my wife, I said, "Did you hear that?" And she goes, "No, I don't think I heard that. What sound is it?" And my daughter goes, "I heard bird." So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I hope it's not being passed down. You know what I'm saying? I fear for that. If you guys can hear our cat Oscar in the background, he's trying to get on the podcast too. But I fear that. That's like one of my biggest fears. Is my parents couldn't protect us from the things that bumped in the night, or the things that seem like a friend, and it's not. And that's like my biggest fear in my girls growing up. And I'm sure we all, there's probably people listening to this podcast like, oh, that's part of the gig of having kids. And I agree. But the things that I've seen in my life and experienced, um, it I just don't want that on my kids, and that's why my oldest daughter's funny. I'll tell you all this. She likes the scary. She likes it spooky. I even as a little girl, she's 3 years old. But even as like when she was like able to start talking, she's it's monster, zombie, or she said umbi, and she likes the spooky. And I laugh at that because I'm like I was that way too. I embraced it. I wanted to learn more. Obviously for the entertainment factor, but also now I want to hear other people's stories because I want to maybe refine keeping it away, I guess you could say. But I hope you guys enjoyed that very long story. It's not a story that I like telling. It makes me very nervous. I had to pause in this recording. So if you hear like me jumping off somewhere, it's because I started getting spooked out. And it's I'm recording this in the middle of the day too, but I just want to know if anyone else out there has experienced that. If you could send me an email, realwarcrypod@gmail.com, or on TikTok or X, message me on there too as well. And I would like to hear. I'd like to hear if you have a story like this, similar. If someone approached you that knew things about you that didn't, and my final conclusion is I think I met the devil that night. I think I did. And he doesn't look like a guy with horns and a pitchfork. But I appreciate you guys listening to this episode. And once again, YouTube, Patreon memberships, the link will be in the description below. I appreciate the support, and I'm going to catch you guys on the next one.